we look at diversity, and especially in the context of, women in leadership or women in management roles, and to put it together, women on boards, which is an increasing phenomena in India. So in this context, I thought I'd share a few thoughts with you and a few ideas, which I think diversity in its gender dimension is perhaps one of the most significant areas where in social change or in social development is a very critical input. So taking on from that, when we look at women in leadership, whether I take it in the context of large public service systems, say the civil service, which carries on the tasks of the government, which are huge and multiple and widespread. And we look at the corporate sector, where increasingly women are playing critical roles in boards and management, CEOs and so on. And also to look at the non-profit sector, which already has a very large presence of women, and where women in leadership have a fairly significant presence. So what is it that makes this gender dimension important in such scenarios? And more importantly, one asks oneself, what is it that women bring to the table? The government has in the recent past made it mandatory to have women on boards. And for someone like me, who has spent most of my time in a professional career with the government, as a policymaker, as an implementer of social sector programs, social change, managing social change. And now increasingly after retirement, I get exposed more and more to the corporate world, which needs women on its boards. And then I ask myself, what do I do there? Or what do people like me do there? Is it optics? Is it something more substantive? I get increasingly, post-retirement, I'm working with the non-profit sector and find that there is a significant role there too. So what is it that we need to bring to the table as women or as gender-sensitive men that will make a difference and make us contribute? And I was actually quite delighted that in this forum of your institution, but also the fact that you train and you develop partners and players in the world of social development, which is so very dear to my heart. So this is a privilege to be with you. So what do women bring to the table? What is the significance of it? Why should we be there? What is it that we can give? And so I've tried to break it down into 3-4 aspects, which I think are critical and which enable a very positive, socially purposeful slant to the contribution. And I think one of those things is also the personal attributes that we bring to the table, women bring to the table. And the reason I say this is because, you hear buzzwords like empathy and they're more inclusive and so on and so forth. But those are, very predictable textbook pronunciations. But really, if you reflect, the women, by the time they get into leadership positions, have a huge experience, their own struggles, their own way of negotiating, their own way of risk-taking, their own way of managing conflict. So there are many dimensions that you progress, especially in our country, in a patriarchal-driven system, where you pick up these enormous attributes actually get strengthened when you get into professional life also. And these are some things which you increasingly bring to the table in all your work life and in all those decision makings that you have to push. It's not something which is strident. In some cases it is, in some cases it is not. But I think by the very sheer experience of life, women are able to bring these attributes and be able to coalesce them into management and their role in various jobs and assignments that they give, which actually contribute to a better and a more sensitized management system. So suddenly these words like empathy, inclusiveness, a general attitude which is fair and let's give all those who have not had it so good a chance, is something which they absorb and they're able to reflect in their work life and in their management styles. And I think this is what women continue to bring on board in assignments which are of a very high and demanding order, or in more reflective fora in the management systems that they populate. So I think one of these, so clearly that these are exceptional people who bring in a lot of experience of a different kind, of a different worldview onto the table. The second, I think, aspect which is important, I find, is we may call it optics, but positions and positionings have a message. And those messages, when you have, let's say, 10% or 20% women in the civil services, or you have, about 14% women on boards, whatever the statistics may be. But I think this matters because it is reflective of a balance, that there is a conscious effort to bring in different points of view. There are extremely reassuring factors when you have, let's say, an increasingly large workforce of women in the non-profit, even for-profit sectors, even in corporations, even in some business and industry, and definitely in much of the underbelly and the activities of governments. So a governance model which reflects a diverse pattern where women are there, women have a voice, women are playing roles, it's reassuring downstream to each and everybody. And by that, I don't mean the women feel only heartened by it, they certainly do, but also anybody who has not had it so good and who feels that glass ceilings are being broken. It's a reassuring, it's a balancing act, it helps aspirations, it helps innovations, it helps self-confidence. So I think optics matters, and even though some of us say that this mechanical inclusion of women in boards is something which may work, may not work, but I think it matters because in the long run, these aspects make a difference in the perception of the whole organization. Thirdly, I think it is also a role which women play in management, in senior levels, in leadership positions, where they give voice. And that is perhaps the biggest stake that they bring to the table. They give voice to, as I said, different perceptions. Women's worldview brings in many more dimensions of management or management tools or vision or aspirations, which are slightly different from the conventional. And they negotiate that space on these leadership positions, as I have had to perhaps negotiate many things in where there was this mindset which had to be changed. So we negotiate. We are all the time negotiating, and we know it's not that we are flying off the handle or we are getting strident. We are actually in a mature position to bring these voices onto the table or these viewpoints onto the table. So I think what is articulated, what it helps people to understand and expand their whole approach to a position, and especially in development administration, that is, I think, the most valuable contribution that women bring to a table. And no matter where you are, whether you are working in a district level or whether you are at the highest echelons of the central government trying to move things, or you are with an NGO who's working very dedicatedly to move education indicators in some corner of India, it is equally vital at all stages that that voice must be heard. And I think that's the God-given right which is given to women when they reach such positions or are able to make a difference. And that is where I think the strongest strength of these positions lies. But I also think in terms of, is this a role which women just take to? Of course, most of them do it with great deal of proficiency because they have their whole experience in that organization behind them. They have their own struggles, their own ways of having got ahead with many of these hurdles. But that is not to say it is all. And I realize this increasingly, that training, no matter what phase of life you are in or what phase of your professional life you are in, there will always be something that you could do better. And in today's world, I think those opportunities do exist where we can constantly keep this part going with much more professional help. And therefore, compliments to ISDM to have started a course of how do you equip women to do better on boards. And I think this is essential. And I take my own example. I mean, in the IAS, there is no discrimination in a certain sense, that you are all trained alike, you all are merit-based, there are no concessions to you, and you just have to do it on your own. And whereas that is a great theory, there are many times when women have felt in the service that we needed just a little bit more of information, just a little more knowledge about pitfalls, where we have been thrust into a world where this total patriarchal domination. Women have been there before us, women will come after us, but maybe there was something else we could have been primed to do better. And there were opportunities where these networks finally developed and made us much more confident in being able to negotiate many things in our professional lives. But I think training, therefore, is something which is vital, which is continuous, and for which fora like yours and many others should continuously be able to build that, build those familiarities with governance patterns, changing governance patterns, participative patterns, which will give more confidence to that role that women expect to play in these institutions and these organizations. And so therefore, I think that preparation is extremely important. The second, I think, which always helps is to be able to get information, data on many variables which help to strengthen a gender perspective, which help with the nuances of the organization, which help you to actually be able to demonstrate change, which some of your ideas might have pushed through, and where the gender dimension needs to be firmly buttressed. So information, data, again, today technology equips us to reach out to this, but any systematic way of making that available to women, making that women seek that information and strengthen their arguments, then be more professional with their with the arguments that they are putting forward, with demonstrable change, information, data, always helps. So I think that is another area where most of us are conscious and try to build that information system for that organization or for the system. And not in the least important, I think, is the value of networks. There were many programs which I worked with in the government, which if I did not have networks amongst the women's movement of India, I would not have been able to fashion, despite all my grassroots experience. So networks make a lot of this. They bring to your table information, ideas, solutions, which no individual human being is capable, no matter how brilliant. So I place a lot of strength on networks which bring in these collective ideas, different approaches, and which always strengthen any organization to plan its activities, and most especially in the social sector. So this is a huge play which I think benefits anybody, men or women, on the table to get the right kind of perspectives or the right kind of deductions which would help that organization forward. So I think these were some of the thoughts which I thought I'd share, but in the conclusion, I certainly feel that that the scope of women in leadership is a role to do better for those who come after you, and that is very important, to feel that sense of place in the organization, in the movement of time, to be able to contribute, to be able to make it easier for many who will follow, and for men and women to have a perspective which is not only inclusive of gender, but inclusive of all those aspects which help social propulsion, social change, and social dynamics to move in what we think is a desired direction in India. So thank you very much for your patience.